seen that. Llama. LMA. It's llama.
I always say llama.
I've not noticed. Well, I love it.
To myself.
It is llama. I love that.
Llama.
I trust you can all hear us.
Everyone goes quiet.
No, I just give me like a couple of seconds, but yeah, I'm camera shy, so sorry.
Okay. I'm shy.
No, you know what? I'm such the introvert. I truly am. It's like, what was that, Rob?
You know exactly what that is. Sort of laughed at posing for photos.
Yeah, listen, that
Mr.
photo
Introvert.
that I have of you, it does not scream introvert. When your hair is just blowing in the wind.
Yeah,
Just desperate for just the slightest breeze. And
my 7 hairs are blowing in the breeze.
When you're in cosplay.
I know, I'm teasing.
I see John's feeling a bit spicy today. Yes, he is. Just kidding. As a matter of fact.
That's all right, Tracy. We'll work that out of him.
Rob is always good for that.
What?
Working the spice out of me.
I feel like it's the opposite effect with me and Rob. Just makes me more crazy.
Tom is saying it's very
Delusional and
robotic.
crazy. What's very robotic?
The audio?
Yeah.
Oh, the audio sucks.
Is anyone else hearing this as robotic, or is it just Vantalord?
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Anyone hearing robotic?
Oh, it's Candy.
It's a child voice. Oh, that's Rob. Yeah, Rob has a child voice.
It's probably me. Just kidding. It's gone.
Oh, so it was all in Vantalord's mind. Okay.
Oh, okay.
On 3,
Weird.
2, and 1. You are both heard and seen. Ready?
No. Just kidding.
I know. Thank you, Josh.
I gotta bring him back somehow.
Welcome to Blue Box. LMA 127 is in effect, and tonight we are talking about the rule of cool and disarming the trap associated therewith. Some fun stuff tonight. I want to just relax and enjoy this amazing cast I always have. Robert, who is the ever incredible and always enjoyable. And then we have Vivi rocking the Adidas cap tonight. Ponytail, that's so not sponsored. Good to have all of you with us tonight, and I love the rule of cool. So let me get that out, because even my title seems like I'm being somewhat against it, and I'm not. I think the rule of cool is a really fun thing in the game. With that said, I think it can be abused, and I love the august crew I have with me every Wednesday night. Rob, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing all right. How you doing, John?
I'm good. I'm excited. It's the last couple of weeks have been busy, but not bad busy. Good busy, right? Traveling a bit and play me a violin, right? So,
Yeah, I got that coming up too. So.
Vivi, how are you?
Good. I'm really good.
No. We need more of that. No, that's not enough.
What do you mean?
No,
I'm just living my life.
living. Okay, all right.
I know. I had to go to the doctor because my tummy issues. It's just
Oh.
a sign of getting old.
Okay, TMI I was not looking for. That was not my goal. I was
You asked me what was going on. I went to the doctor. I saw a doctor. Got medication for my stomach.
Okay, good.
But I've been good otherwise.
Well, I have a pinched nerve in my scapula, just above this neck part here, and I had that worked on today. It's been 6 weeks, numbness in the fingers, but it's all getting better. So
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
See? There you go, Rob. And
Welcome to Blue Box.
Oh man. Yeah, a little touch of sciatica. The stiff neck is finally gone though.
okay, finally.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna have a fun time tonight. I hope you guys like the pictures. I have all kinds of cool pics I put up on the stream. But I'm gonna start off with you, Rob, because you're a longer time DM. certainly than Vivi. You're really close to me, like in terms of how long you've DM'd. So, what is your personal definition of rule of cool, and how does it impact your gameplay?
So, I mean, for me, rule of cool, originally for me, it started off on how to cover things where the rules either were kind of vague, didn't make sense, or just really honestly didn't cover what the player wanted to do. It seems to have morphed since then.
Okay.
Into, you know, things that the player wants to do on a grander scale or they'd like to see, and figuring out how to make it work. But for me, I mean, first and foremost for me, it is players doing things that, you know, may not be well covered in the rules, or honestly, the rules that exist just aren't really great.
Well,
So
yeah, I
finding
mean,
the best, most interesting way to do it.
yeah, like CNC is so good at that. Like Troll Lord Games, Castle, like the rules don't matter, right? The story matters in many cases, but rule of cool goes beyond just, is there a rule for that specific thing? It is, how do you keep the balance in the game? So we'll come back to you, Rob. Vivi, your same question. As a DM, you're the DM's quest, and awesome at DMing. I've seen some of your stuff. You're pretty good. So how does your gameplay and rule of cool impact what you do as a DM?
I feel like I do a lot of real cool. I'm a very more like laxed DM. I mean, if it sounds cool and it you know what I mean, and you can give me a good reasoning and a sound reasoning behind why you're doing what you're doing or what you're wanting to do, and it's obviously not super outlandish, like I'm all for it, because I feel like that's the best part of D&D, is where you get the most creativity. You know what I mean? Like a good example would be Rory. Like he's very good at like twisting those like minor details in spells and saying, hey, you know, can I do this, where it's still within the realm of the spell, but he kind of puts his own little twist on it. And I mean, like as long as it's, you know, it's not going to be severely impacting the game, I'm all for it.
I love that. So actually Rory and Gimbal, and that's part of what I wanted to talk about tonight. I think he has done such a good job of pushing the envelope of what that spell should do, encouraging creativity. That's always good with rule of cool. And I can see the gremlins are in Vivi's house, as they always are, and nibbling around her ankles. Wait. But I think the rule of cool in spell casting, that is always okay. To me, if you're using what's the obvious trope, Rob? What's everyone use with creativity and spellcasting? There's one that comes to mind for me. What's that?
Go ahead, Rob.
The creativity in spellcasting?
Yeah, like the most, like it's banal now, but OG creativity and spellcasting. Like I use grease and I cast fireball, right? So like that stuff, like that's been around for so long. Now Gimbal and Rory were so good at extending that flaming hand to like just many things. Those are fun tropes to play on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like casting burning hands to literally burn hands.
Literally burn your hands.
Yeah, prestidigitation is also like kind of a good one too, because you know there's room and ebb and flow to see of what you're really wanting to do. It's a very versatile spell, and that allows for a lot of creativity.
Well, and we've seen the Presti, as Jenny calls it. It's a great spell, but you have said, Vivi, that you like it and you can work with it in most situations. But can you see it being pushed in a direction you don't like, or has that never happened to you?
Oh yeah, it definitely has. I definitely have a player who's very like min-max. I want to like, you know, never fails kind of thing. So it can definitely get away depending on what they're trying to do. Like obviously we all have great ideas and stuff like that, but sometimes if you let a little bit too much slide, then now the rules kind of go by the wayside. Do you know what I mean? So you
right.
have to find that balance between allowing something to happen because the moment is right, or it feels right, or you know the explanation is good, or the reasoning behind it is good, versus just letting it happen just because this is what I want to do, so this is what it's going to look like.
Right. Rob?
No, I mean that's yeah. I agree with that. It's spellcasting's one of those things where you once we start talking about the way spells work, you have to you want to be able to say yes and instead of no. But there needs to be the consideration that you're not suddenly changing the nature of the way all spells work, where basically the only the people who can be really, really creative with those spells are getting away with stuff that others can't because they don't, they're not great at it. Great, and so it's like, where is that line? Figuring out where that line is.
Oh wow, Rob, I was not even thinking about that. That's not where I wanted to go tonight, but I want to go there now. So if a player is you open Pandora's box, my friend. So should I somehow
go home?
should I somehow just balance if one player is better at exploiting, using, engaging rules, ideas than another? Am I as a DM supposed to squash that?
Well, see, here's the thing that when you get to the point where it's actually exploiting.
But exploiting is subjective. So what is exploiting? I'm not putting you on the spot, Rob. Like Vivi can answer, like the chat can answer.
It's hard because I mean you kind of have to take it on a case by case basis. What are they doing? How far? I mean, there's pushing the envelope, and then there's going far beyond what a spell was ever intended to do.
Right.
And you're suddenly talking about a spell that, because of what the character's trying to do with it, may be a lot more powerful than that spell was intended. You got a first level, second level spell that is suddenly becoming a lot more.
Right. Vivi?
I agree with Robert. I think again, like it's difficult to say it's not really black and white because it's very situational, and depending on that person's creativity and what boundary they're necessarily trying to push. Like, are they trying to exceed, like Rob said, the limits of that spell and kind of boost it up in a way that's making it better, or they're just kind of adding a little bit of flair to the spell? Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
It just kind of depends on the situation of what they're trying to do, I guess, is basically exactly what Rob said.
I mean, I have a perfect example of that. Are you familiar with Grape Ape, Matt Robertson? He's one of the I think he's basically in a lot of the different groups, Traders Rejects or any other groups and such. But he was famous for making DMs' lives interesting by creative use of Tensor's floating disk, and using Tensor's floating disks in a way it was never meant to be used.
How so? Like, how were they using it?
Basically using it as an offensive weapon in ways, not directly dealing damage, but making having it cause issues for people, as far as like enemies and such, by the way they were using it. It became a lot more than the floating disk. Floating disk is basically supposed to be, here's a disk, you can put stuff on it, you can move stuff from here to there.
Right.
That is Tensor's floating disk. It was not meant to be, well, we're going to make somebody's life really difficult by putting the disk in places and using it to move them and unwillingly and getting in their way and so on and so forth.
But when you come to spell casting, isn't that the core of that? Like, no one ever thought when the grease spell was created that someone would apply a fireball to it, or web. There's so many.
I'm having a hard time believing that nobody thought that grease and fireball. I mean,
wait, come on! In 1970, whatever they probably okay. All right, so forget that.
Fires weren't a thing in 1970.
No, like find someone like.
Existed until the 80s.
Yeah.
we cooked on the chars of the coal that we brought up from the mine, and it was good.
My point is that there are old school spells that were created. They had no idea how these combinations would occur. And that happens. If you truly take spells to a physical, truly engaging in physics, people can manipulate these things in many, many ways. Like, spells could get so OP, out of control. As a DM, I like Rory, and what Rory does is fun. But we have other examples where if you do this too much, it can get really, really OP. No?
See, now I don't consider. Here's the thing. I don't consider using two spells, one after the other, as being. I mean, it may require some adjudication and figuring out.
Sure.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
What does this look like? But I don't consider that exploiting it. That's, I mean, they're spells. You're casting each spell as intended, and you just happen to figure out that, okay, if I've got a web, I can set the web on fire. Sure. Okay, what
Agreed.
does that
Agreed.
look like?
Yep.
No, I mean it's flammable, but it's. I mean that you're there. You're still adjudicating the as things work, and then figuring out, well, okay, what's the ancillary stuff to it?
Exactly. No, I like that, Rob. That's good. Vivi?
I was just reading the chat.
All right, so another question. How does the rule of cool encourage creativity? And could it lead to laziness? Like players pushing DMs like just giving in?
I don't think so. Personally, I do enjoy it because it's kind of like brainstorming. Again, we're collaboratively telling a story together, right? So not necessarily I'm always the narrator. Sometimes the players are. So, I mean, there's a little bit of pushback, and you can definitely kind of figure it out and decide collectively whether or not that works, or if it's, you know what I mean? Like, I think you can work on it together. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't find it a bad thing. Somebody can say, hey, I have this really great idea. I want to try to do this. And I can be like, well, like, and again, situational. I don't know if that part might work, but let's see if we can kind of
Right. So it's
balance.
It's not a bad thing, but it's up to the DM to make sure it's controlled, right? So
Yes.
yeah, I've got a meta place I want to go here, but let's just keep pursuing this because this is fun. So, have you ever regretted, Vivi, an invocation of the rule of cool? Ever seen it? No, never.
I don't think I have. And honestly,
Okay.
the times when I've let my players kind of be able to use that creativity, I try to encourage it the best I can. Like I said, it's very few far in between as an adult you really get to delve into and using your imagination and creativity that way. And I like it because it does encourage my players to RP more and think kind of outside the box. Like I always tell my players, like, every interaction you kind of get into isn't always just a fight or die kind of situation. Like, there's a multitude of ways to get out of a situation, whether you're bribing somebody, whether you're talking your way out of it, whether you're lying, whatever it may
Right.
be. And I like that encouragement. Like, the rule set is there for a reason, obviously, and having the rules there is nice as a guideline and things like that, but there is leeway for us to use our imagination and be a little bit more creative and add that creative flair.
Agreed. So I think this whole idea of rule of cool conflates two concepts. Rules as written, raw, right? So do I just follow books? No, I've never done that. 2, is anything the player says okay and goes. The enjoyment of the moment, the player being spectacular. So I've used this example, Vivi. It would be super cool if my first level wizard could call a dragon. You know what? I call Draconis to my side, my trusty red dragon steed. That is super frickin' cool. Like, what? Who would not love that, right? But
Yeah, but you're also level 1. So
okay, but okay, whoa, Rob, wait, Rob. I'll come back to you, Rob. I want Vivi. I'm saying, like, you said you never regret a rule of cool implementation. So we had an example from someone in our Discord that said they had a character pop in as a level 1 halfling that had 20 daggers, short swords on their belt, 2 crossbows on their arms, and wanted to flip and dive and fire both crossbows simultaneously. So because you're a good DM and you love the creativity, you let that happen?
Listen, I never said personally, in my experience, anybody who has implemented the rule of cool at my table, I have not regretted it.
Okay.
I'm not
All
saying
right.
that
All
that's
right.
the
Fair.
situations
Fair.
that I
So-
would regret. I'm just saying, personally, my players haven't tried to pull that kind of on me because we know there's a
'Cause you don't
line. There's a
smack
line.
down.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned in the Discord where that was brought up, I blame the DM on that one.
Always.
that-
Yes.
That because that was an established campaign. You had an established group. This wasn't a one shot where
Summon
it looked
Ankeg.
flaky and you know, a little weird and whatever, and you just kind of like roll with things. This was an established campaign with a brand new player that none of them had ever played with before, who also wasn't, you know, was a different age than the rest of the players. Was a younger player. I mean, not that necessarily means anything, but there's no way I'm having a brand new player come into an established group who I know nothing about and not looking over their character sheet, if for no other reason, just to confirm that they did their character sheet right. You know, that should have thrown red flags up all over the place. You know, it should never have gotten to the point where the player even tried it, because that should have been caught early, you know, before the first die was rolled.
Yeah, agreed. So, following up on that, we've had others. So, I'm going to save the names to protect the innocent. We had someone who said they had a character that took 50 feet of rope attached to a grappling hook and a crossbow and fired that. It is super cool. Love that. That's awesome. Also, physics, no sense at all. Vivi, do you let that happen in your game? If your character says, I've got 50 feet of rope, I've got a crossbow and a grappling hook, I'm going to fire that. Do you let that happen?
I wouldn't, because again, like you say, like physics-wise, it doesn't really make sense.
But it's
You-
D&D. What are physics in D&D?
Well,
If
there
it was
is.
silk rope, I might.
Yeah.
Well, okay, right? So we're going to go there.
Situations, and that's what I mean. Like you can say, like your player can present that to you, and then you can say, well, you know, realistically that doesn't make sense, but you know, if you had this or this, like Rob said, like silk rope, there is an option, and then they can kind of work through there. But I mean, certain things, like it's like, oh, I'm just gonna walk in the sky, and when you don't have any nothing to back that up on it, it really doesn't make sense, right? So you kind of have to adjudicate from there. Where it's like, is that really logically make sense, or now are you just reaching and just kind of pulling stuff out of your
Where?
out of your head?
Rob?
Yeah, I mean, and not only that, there comes a point where it's like, okay, well, you know, say you decide that regular rope won't work, but silk rope might be light enough to give it an attempt.
Well, yeah, and then right.
That's not to say that roll is going to be made as a normal roll. There's still going to be a penalty on it because you're still doing something.
So
Well,
Rob, sorry. So we have a literal example of that at Blue Box. It's in Tears of Arid with Click. David Click. I mean, I know your Sundays or sometimes.
I missed
All right, so Click, David has a light crossbow. He has a silk rope, very thin, 10 feet, -2 when he rolls. So you can have these examples of manipulating the rules, but the DM don't be a jerk. Don't make it too hard for the characters, but make sure it feels real to them. So he's got this 10 feet silk rope. He can fire it with that crossbow. He can hit something, but he's not doing 50 feet of threefold rope that is corded on a crossbow, right? That to me is a good example of implementation. Well, I guess that sounds like I'm self-congratulatory. I'm not saying that. But like, I just think that's one example of how you could do it.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, it needs to make somewhat sense. If you start worrying about everything making sense in D&D, you're going down a rabbit hole, and well, you're just done.
Exactly.
But it's got to be in the realm of plausibility.
Yes.
You know, whether how difficult it is, or you know what's required. You know that you can negotiate a little bit, but it's got to make some sense. It's got to make somewhere in the realm of being able to say, you know, I can see that somehow possibly happening.
Okay, so let's talk about the most important rule of cool here at Blue Box, which is what happened when we were absolutely robbed? Vivi,
What do you mean by robbed?
this was used in the D&D movie. It is Rizia,
I know.
the melon.
That's my background.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, and this was the rule. Like, you did cool things with melons. You tossed them. We had fun with them. This is.
He had potatoes.
I know, and also the the whole. You can't tell me that wasn't. I will die. I will go to my grave
I will
saying.
die on that hill.
Okay.
We did
All
it.
you do was eat some snake, and I would have had a loss.
Exactly. Like she. Thank you. I feel vindicated. That's all I want to say. All right. So.
100%.
But that is really cool. Like, you had wonderful moments with Rizia. And she had these crazy things that she did at times. As a DM, you've got to give the player that license. But the downside to me is if it's too much, it becomes cheap. And that is where Monty Hall comes in. So, Rob, what is Monty Hall? No. Wrong. Vivi, what is Monty Hall?
Why are you asking me?
Because I know Rob knows. I'm asking because I'm not sure you do.
I would like to phone a friend, please. Robert, are you there?
Let's make a deal. All right. So let's see if this can help all of you. Let's have a little fun today. I don't know if this is going to hit some DMCA switch. If I do, that's fine. But I think this is fun.
Oh my God! Yeah, Kai, I know.
And I never watched this. I
never.
I know. I only know it historically. I know. It was before I was like.
Is this Let's Make
It was in
Let's Make
syndication.
a Deal.
Those videos.
Yeah, I know
those
what Let's
movies
Make
come
a
out.
Deal.
Let's make a deal with
Didn't know who that guy was.
with
Monty Hall.
Monty Hall, which was HALL.
If
That's
you said, do you know Let's Make a Deal situation?
exactly.
The host's name that I was.
Okay, all right. So he, like Monty Hall, Let's Make a Deal, the game show, and that spawned the entire concept of Monty Hall, no longer HALL, HAUL, meaning you are making a deal with your players. So as a DM, and there are some of these things, if I go back to my slides here, you can see some of them have the, door number 1, door number 2, door number 3. You're negotiating with your players to make something that they just think is awesome and cool, which is at some level fun, but at another level dangerous, because it then degenerates into just, negotiating, and it's no longer the game's economy.
I mean, it depends. I feel like if you have a good rapport with your players and a good understanding, like nobody wants the game not to be fun. Like the whole point is to have fun, and there is a set of rules there for a reason. I don't think I've necessarily ever haven't had an issue with my players either taking advantage of the rule of cool. I think it's a general good understanding that it's like, okay, like we're not going to do that. You know what I mean? Some things we can bend a little bit on, but like certain things, and if we're getting ridiculous, then it just becomes no fun. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do, but ridiculous.
Like,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vivi.
no, I just said like somebody who never misses, right? They hit every time. It's like, well, that's not fun. Like, that's the whole point of D&D. It's a chance. You can fail, but you also can succeed. But if you are constantly succeeding, then like what's the fun in the game? So I think having a bit of that challenge there and healthy conversation about what potentially could happen, or you know what I mean, if it's allowed or not, is good balance for everybody in general.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I like that. So Monty Hall and this whole idea of making a deal is fun at times. The concern is if it's overused, it becomes cheap. Rob?
Yeah, but that's not exactly where Monty Hall came into the picture. It didn't have to do with players wanting things. It had to do with DMing styles. Specifically, Gary Gygax calling out James Ward on his DMing style and handing out vast amounts of treasure and experience on every adventure.
Well,
Rule of cool.
so let's look at that because James Ward actually hit him directly, 1978.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and there was some back and forth.
Gary was definitely a Monty Hall DM too.
Yeah, and so this whole idea of Monty Hall in 1978. So we're going way back. This is, I think, what you were. Thank you, Cannonball. Appreciate that. So he's going pretty much back and forth with that crew at that time, and it's a bit tongue in cheek through all of it. But yeah, it was level 30 PCs playing Choo Choo. They have tanks. That's why you see some of those other like images. And of course, they had the first wingless dinosaurs, or wingless dragons rather, here on the right side. I said dinosaur.
Wingless dragons are dinosaurs.
I know. You see that here?
That's beautiful. I love
I know. I thought you would like that, Rob. I thought you would like that.
and I didn't even bring it.
Oh, come on. That's happened a few times. Come on. I've done that a few times. Like, I'm not. So, wingless dragons here. But yeah, I mean, they were going back at it. And in fact, the editor, which I'm presuming was Gary, Jim has assassinated their collective character with this comment. It's so much fun. This is where Monty Hall came from. And again, it's right here. This is 1978. And they changed the last name Hall to Haul, meaning a haul. Like you pulled a great haul. How fun is this? So I just wanted, like, Rule of Cool has roots in the game that go way back before it was ever a thing in current edition. And even at that time, it's super fun for my paladin at 3rd level to have a Holy Avenger, for my wizard to have a dragon. If I call the sprite to my side to avenge me, if I recover from that death so quickly and resurrect, that all these things are cool. But the darkness, the downside is it cheapens the game. And let's go to none better. I like this guy a lot. Let's talk about Matt Mercer. He has a video, which is 5 minutes. Let's look at this. Super fun. Again, DMCA strikes, if they happen, I'm okay with that because I'm just trying to have a good time with the team tonight. But take a look at this.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Mercer. I'm a voice actor and the Dungeon Master for Geek and Sundry's Critical Role. And welcome to my video series on tips and tricks for Game Masters and Dungeon Masters alike. Today, we're talking about the divisive Rule of Cool.
I love the Rule of Cool. I really do.
Aware what the Rule of Cool is, it's a trope that essentially means a willing suspension of disbelief for the sake of a cool moment.
Okay, wait. I have a problem with that. I'm playing D&D. Everything is a willing suspension of disbelief. I've stepped to the table as an orc, a gnome, a halfling, a whatever. All right, sorry. Still, Matt's awesome.
It happens all the time in film and television and a lot of storytelling of a visual nature. It's just, being able to suspend your disbelief enough to let something cool happen and not dwell too much on the specifics of it. In RPGs, this generally refers to occasionally allowing the chance for some ridiculous stunts or unique...
Generally and occasionally, really important, right? So if Rule of Cool Monty Hall becomes the constant of the campaign, that's where it ruins the balance. And that's what Matt's saying here. Very well said.
Interpretations of some of the rules or features of a system for a possibly cool moment. I think it's a really fun element to use in moderation. You need to establish early on in your game with your players how much of a level of crazy you're willing to allow. Just so everyone kind of understands the general feel, the flow of the story, and what to try for and what not to try for.
Okay, so let me pause there. I love this. Let's talk about spells again. I have a question here I wanted to ask. I think this is for you, Vivi. Are you scared?
No.
No,
maybe.
of course not. You should be very scared.
I'm really confident and just like, when it's done.
Oh, is that my effect? I'm sorry. No, you're killing it. You're doing great. So the Rule of Cool is often considered from the perspective of players doing extraordinary things. What happens if you apply that to villains? Should villains be able to have the same sort of, I can do all kinds of cool things against those PCs with the Rule of Cool?
As long as it's balanced, again, like that's always about how you want to have these encounters, right? Like they want to be balanced. Nobody wants to sit there and all your players can't hit no matter what they roll, like that becomes not fun and unfair. Again, I think if you can balance it, I think that the villains can also have a little bit of flair too, or things that they can do
Yeah.
as well.
Which is cool in that effect. Like when you know Strahd or whatever your villain is does something, slides down the rail, leaps off the thing, casts 2 spells in a row. In the D&D 5e based movie, or more D&D.
Sorry, I'm just imagining Strahd sliding down a rail.
Oh yes, he would look. Would he look gorgeous as he did it? Yes, he would be. All right, so Rob. Could the rule of cool ever change the genre or tone of the game? Meaning, so let's look what Matt said. Let's listen to this again.
Just so everyone kind of understands the general feel, the flow of the story, and what to try for and what not to try for. A lot of non-fantasy.
The feel and flow of the story. So could Rule of Cool take a story which was intended to be by the DM and the narrator, a dark or serious campaign, and then suddenly it becomes lighthearted, comedic, and not. And to me, I actually love the lighthearted and the comedic. I do that all the time in my dark campaign. So I'm not saying. But what are your thoughts? Could Rule of Cool in some way change the narrative of the campaign?
To the extent that the DM lets it, sure.
Right.
I mean, because once the players get a sense of what's being allowed, they're going to keep going with it. And if it's not a way that you intended for the campaign to go in terms of feel and how things work, well, now you're dealing with the consequences of what you've allowed. So I'm all for my players doing epic things. I'm for my players doing epic things that make some kind of sense. I mean, I want them to, playing CNC, I want them to try the thing, do the thing. But, there's a point where it's like, okay, this is what I'm going to allow within reason. This is what we're going to try to do. And it may be that, okay, you want to try to do this thing. This is what you're going to need to do, and it's going to be difficult.
Right. So a consequence.
You might be able to pull it off once.
I love that.
If you're lucky.
Great point, Rob. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, but it's not. It doesn't mean that this is going to be. Hey, okay, I can do this. Well, now I'm going to do this like every single time. No.
Exactly. Well said. So Vivi, so a lot of times I like using, I mean, again, I'm a Rule of Cool fan. I've done Rule of Cool since I was like 11 years old. I think you have to be able to bend the rules to tell stories, to tell great stories. The main point I want to make, I've touched on, I'm drive home a little bit stronger later, but I think you have to do this as a DM. Vivi, you were about to say something. Go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing with you.
Okay, well, that's always, you can say it again.
I agree with you.
One more time?
I agree with Robert.
There we go.
There you go. That's what he wanted. All right, so let's
Everybody gets one. That's it.
Hey, I'm done fighting with Rob. I've lost. He wins. All right, so let's get Matt.
CRPGs, a lot of modern systems and like low power horror systems tend to adhere to strict realism in player actions because they build their tension. That's how a lot of the game's danger elements are built around.
Right. So tension and danger elements, this is part of the game. So many of the things you see on Rule of Cool are if everything that a player wants to do is fair game, then the danger is gone. And of course, I am notoriously a death DM, but I'm really not. I don't like killing PCs at all. I hate it. I waste time, spend money, effort. But if there is no danger, then you don't have that tension. Matt, again, like listen to what he's...
I want to challenge the premise of that a bit, though.
What I'm saying or what Matt's saying? Or both?
What Matt's saying. I get like the gritty realism, low, horror type thing being realistic, but even in every horror story type thing, normally it's the person who survives is the one who gets creative, finds a way to do something that
absolutely yes.
They push that envelope to find a way to get out of whatever is happening. You're
right. Wow, this is like the 7th time today. Great job. But what is Matt saying? It's like you do not want to break the ambience. So I love having these moments, but if you're trying to create drama and horror, take any. I don't like. We've had so many horror movies. I think if you look at Freddy and go to Krueger or go to things like Phantasmagoria or Michael Myers, if you suddenly have a song break out with balloons, it breaks the ambience of the movie. In the same way, I think actually I do this a lot in my game. We can break ambience for like 3, 4, 5 seconds. A player will crack a joke or something will come up the street, but like bring it right back in real quick. So it doesn't actually break the ambience, but it just has that nice sort of, intermediate effect. Vivi, you felt this so many times in our games. Like we have been in very serious moments, and then something lighthearted, we enjoy it, we embrace it, and then we come back. Yes, or
Yeah. Oh yeah. Book 2. All of book 2.
wait, no, there was nothing dark in book 2. What?
I want to tell you right now, John.
Rob, go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Balloons
I don't know.
improve.
I guess I'm kind of struggling. I'm still struggling with this premise on that because, for a lot of these horror type games, basically the main idea is you're trying to survive any way other than combat. You do not want to be doing any fighting whatsoever. So you're almost left with doing rule of cool type stuff just
Okay.
to survive as long as possible. I don't know.
Well, is that rule of cool or is that rule of desperation?
Well, yeah, the rule of desperation is going to lead to doing things
It could be
that
cool,
are
yeah.
you're thinking outside the box. Because if you're playing inside the box, like if you're playing Call of Cthulhu and you're playing straight up your character as basically what's on your sheet, you're gonna die. You're gonna die quick because you're not meant to be in that type of situation. It's supposed to be normal people facing absolutely bizarre, horrible things and finding a way through. And you're not doing it by just being your regular self.
Of course. I mean, if any of us are playing D&D to be our regular self, we're pretty awesome in real life, I guess, because that's not. We all want to do things that we don't do in real life. So again, Matt said this, and I get your point, Rob. That's fair.
Systems tend to adhere to strict realism in player actions because they build their tension. That's how a lot of the game's danger elements are built around. So for those, the rule of cool is a little more sparing comparatively. And it's not always good for a game story to incorporate a lot. Tension, difficulty, and fear are powerful storytelling tools. And if the players feel like they can do any wacky thing, any crazy idea at any given point in time and probably be okay, then it takes away an element of that. So you want...
Okay. One of my most, agreed points, and I figure that means Rob's going to disagree. So, Rob, your thoughts on this? Because I do think tension, danger, I've talked about this so many times. Book 2 was painful in Greyhawk Awakening. It was painful for me. It was painful for all of us. But I think it's part of what makes stories great. If there is no danger, if there is no consequence, if there is no severity to decisions, I think it ruins the joy of the game. At least, no, let me rephrase. I think it attenuates the level of joy the game can have. And I've got some examples of this I'll talk about in a moment. But Matt had a thought here. And Rob, what are your thoughts?
The question I have here is, well, where does the problem lie? Is it because you're just saying, is he talking because he's saying yes to everything that the players are trying, or is it the way it's being adjudicated?
Well, I think it's the former, but let's listen again.
Good for a game story to incorporate a lot. Tension, difficulty, and fear are powerful storytelling tools. And if the players feel like they can do any wacky thing, any crazy idea at any given point in time.
Okay, so players doing anything they want to do, right? Vivi, you talked about this. Uh-huh. So if players can just make up something which is cool, if the DM doesn't control that, it ruins the story.
Right. Okay, so whose fault is that if the story gets
DM, the DM.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, it's always the yeah. I'm sorry. If there was any other part,
kind of confused here. It's like,
Okay.
if you know, it's only a problem if you let it be a problem.
exactly. Yes. No. Yeah. This is always the DM's fault. It's not the players. You know, players
because
can.
you're the one. Yeah,
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're the one who decides the rules, right? Because you're the dungeon master. So I mean, whether how you want to play the game or run the game, your player should be aware, right? So I mean,
No, Greg, it is fair for the DM to be to blame here. It is. It's not. I'm sorry, but no. Meaning, players can ask, right? They can ask. They should come up with ideas. Sometimes crazy ideas. That's okay. You as a DM, Vivi, you did this many times earlier on this stream. Like, cautiously, cleverly, that's a good idea. Maybe we could do it this way and this way. Not rejecting them, not coming at them hard and shutting them down, right?
I typically don't like. So the way that I kind of DM is, I feel like it's very difficult to kind of sit down with a group of people and kind of open up and allow yourself to play a character and be somebody else or use a different voice or storytell together. That
Right.
can be very difficult for a lot of people. So I usually I never just say straight up no. Like a lot of the times, if I can, if at all possible, I try not to create a proverbial wall in somebody's imagination, because the second somebody thinks it's a good idea
Nice.
and is like, oh, okay, like what if I do this? And they start kind of getting a little bit more creative than just, what's written in the book. I typically, and if it is kind of a little bit outrageous and I don't think that it could work, I typically just set a higher DC that's kind of like that they won't. I always allow my players to at least roll for it and try. You can always try to do something.
Have you ever had a player roll for something that you knew the DC was impossible unless they?
Yes,
Okay.
100%. And that's kind of, and then that's kind of like it kind of, for me, I feel like it doesn't stunt the person's willingness to be creative, because if you just say no, then they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can't, like maybe I won't do
Right.
that, and deter people from kind of thinking a little bit outside the box and stuff like that. So typically I try not to, unless it's obviously really ridiculous and you're just like, okay, like that's not happening,
Right.
But in certain situations where they might try to do something, I'll just set a higher DC, or where I know that they're not going to pass it, but I still let them roll for it anyway, just so that it doesn't stunt and, like I say, build these imaginary walls, or build these walls in somebody's imagination, while all of a sudden they're like getting creative and then they're like, no, like you can't do that. And it kind of just kills everything,
I like that. That's really good. And so a comment in the chat was from GRTFB, whatever, 1995. If a nat 20 is rolled, nat 20s don't always succeed when you're talking about these sorts of things. So I do believe in the nat 20 always hits in combat,
Yes.
barring very, very specific. Generally, a nat 20 will at least hit. But on a skill check, on a feat check, that's a 5% chance. You don't get a 5% chance in anything you do in life, right? That's too over the top easy. So it could be, if you roll a nat 20 for me, all right, now you have a chance to do this, roll again. And if you do that, so if you do like 2 nat 20s in a row, that's in a row, that's 1 in 400. Okay, now we could do something spectacular, and that is super fun. I've had moments like that in my games, and to me as a DM, the dice tell the story. We all celebrate. Your crazy idea worked, but it wasn't just because it was a 5% chance you rolled a 20, right?
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, do you feel that, Vivi, or?
Oh yeah, yep, I totally agree. Yeah, because
Okay.
like you said, like there's always a chance, and not saying that like nat 20 is an end all be all. You're
Right.
nat 20, you, like you say, succeed at everything just because you roll a nat 20.
Right.
Like combat makes sense, you hit, but everything else, like there is always leeway and room and stuff.
Dirty Dwarf said, Dirty Dwarf said, yeah, he was at 0.001 on his successes in real life. Rob, thoughts on that?
So I mean, yeah, to add on to that is, if I think what they're doing, trying to do is just completely out of bounds. It's just not. I can't find a way to conceive of, if there's an option I can give them.
What would be an example of that? Like, have you ever had that where something was completely out of bounds? Like, be specific, Rob. Don't mention names, of course, but like,
I can't. You know, I don't have a
One time,
specific.
John. I mean, sorry, I wasn't supposed to mention names.
it's all right. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I don't have a specific example that
Okay.
comes to mind. Mostly because I haven't really dealt with too many completely just thrown totally out of left field. You want to do what? Type situations.
Wait, come on. In 40 years, you have never had that?
I've had players be creative. I've had players. I mean, listen, I've had players jump from.
My wife does this to me almost every 4 or 5 sessions. You're telling me in 40 years, you have never had someone come to you with something way out of bounds.
I also had no problem with killing a character that felt plummeted to their death when they failed.
Right.
Jump from. I mean, I've had. Let's put it this way.
Oh, do you think I should have killed Tick? You think Tick with his 30-foot fall should have died?
Not necessarily. Well, 30-foot fall. No, not necessarily.
Well, he is a half giant. Yeah.
I mean, but here's the thing. I'll be honest with you. I'm normally on the other side of that. When I'm the player, I've had a lot more occasions. I've been the one out of left field, and I've got a friend who was one of the DMs at our frat house, and I brought more than one game to a standstill because he just stopped when he stared at me when I had a character do something that just didn't account for, never occurred to him. What? Kind of look. So,
all right. So my wife poisons my coffee is in the chat. Yeah, I love that. No, Rob, you're dead on. Also, people have died from 10-foot tall falls, Mike. Of course they have,
Sure.
but I've also jumped from 10 feet and been fine. So if I go head first and snap my neck, anything's possible. But we're assuming we're playing heroic characters in D&D most of the time. So I'm not going to normally D6 damage will kill a commoner, right? Commoners have 1 to 2 hit points.
By the way, I'd also like to bring up something with regards to the old Jim Ward, Gary Gygax Monty.
Oh, okay.
Thing.
All right.
I would also note that all the loot and gear in the world wasn't going to save their characters when Gary would do something like run his kids through Tomb of Horrors and
that I think something like that is referenced in this article. It's like, this is, again, go back to 1978. This Dragon Mag is so much fun. There are arguments that happened here back and forth. I should mention this. So we have a great member of our Blue Box community, Courtney, of Figuratively Speaking Minis, right? Courtney is so cool. She's played in a game with us. She's also been on all of our Throw Dice Like a Girl and other, she's just amazing. So talented as a painter. And as I was going,
Canadian, don't forget.
I'm sorry. The most important thing, she's Canadian. So guess what I found today, Vivi?
What?
1981.
Hey, figuratively speaking.
With
That's
minis.
awesome.
With minis. 1981. I talked to Courtney today and I was like, did you know about it? She's like, no, this is awesome. Like, so you had
amazing.
Figuratively Speaking Minis in 1981 in Dragon Magazine. Yep.
That is cool.
I like the Canadian version better, by the way.
I do. I do
don't
too.
know why.
Like, yeah. Courtney kills much better. Yeah, much better. Yeah, these are not. But I thought it was fun. Okay, so back to it, Rob. Let's look at what Matt said just a bit more. I think his next point will be very interesting to you. Let's see if I'm right.
Rust monsters, one really good way to get rid of all that gear.
Oh, I love rust monsters. Id fiends, intellect devourers, all of those. Yes.
Gelatinous cubes.
Gelatinous cubes.
Oh, who likes gelatinous cubes? Not I. No.
The Dungeon Roomba.
The Dungeon Roomba. I love that. Nicely. All right, here we go.
Probably be okay. Then it takes away an element of that. So you want to be sparing with its use, but you also don't want to squash
I don't care about 5e. Nope.
physically. So for the GM and the player, if you agree that that's something you could occasionally pull into a game, be sparing with it, and pick the right moments to have those heroic, stand-up experiences to do something crazy. There is a need for the GM to maintain an internal consistency with the rules in the world so it stays cohesive and that people understand the boundaries.
Okay, so internal consistency. Is that fair, Rob? Agree? Disagree?
Yeah, but I mean, And maybe it's because of the fact that they're talking 5e, where things,
No,
especially when you
no,
get
no, 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 no.
things
Come
get
on,
really
this is not 5e, Rob. No, I'm sorry. Now the first time we disagree today.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about Matt.
No, but it doesn't matter if it's 5e. Let me play it again. It doesn't matter what edition this is. Listen again.
Maintain an internal consistency with the rules in the world so it stays cohesive and that people understand the boundaries.
What's that got to do with 5e?
Because 5e, when you start to get, especially when you start to get to the mid to high levels, things get weird.
They don't in 3.5 or in 2
Well, I didn't play. I didn't play 3.5
or 2
so
or 1.
2 and 1. No,
No, Gary said they shouldn't get over 10. I know at 1, but
2 and 1. I mean, listen, a high level wizard could do crazy things, but he could still be taken out by 2 swings of a sword. Yeah.
Well, all right. So yeah, okay.
You get that? Yeah. You get the proper magic weapon. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, four D4 hit die wizards are still squishy. I don't care, what
Yeah.
level they are.
All right. Fair enough.
And you don't
I'll
want
let you win.
the stakes and the reality and the tension to have less weight, which can happen if you allow too many of these to happen in succession. Gauge which player actions are viable as a GM and which you might consider abuse. A cool rule of cool moment, in my opinion, would be like if somebody decided, for instance, a sorcerer has a fog spell. Cool, that's a fog spell. It usually just clouds a little area. What if they decided they wanted to use that fog spell to create enough moisture that if they, funneled it into an area that was extremely flammable, it would actually dampen the flames. That's a creative use of it. It's not really a rule of cool moment. It's a creative use. So you can find that separation there.
That's Gimbal, right? That's Rory. That's doing fun things with spells.
100%.
Exactly.
100%.
Now, some of the things we had in Discord were on a simpler scale. I really enjoyed one time when my brother's character leveled up right after being captured by gnolls in the desert and was bound in chains and was not strong enough to break those chains. He took a level of Barbarian, raged, rolled a nat 20, adding his increased strength bonus from the rage. It was enough to break the shackles. He proceeded to use the chains on his wrist as weapons and fought all the gnolls. Thoughts?
I think it would have to depend on their backstory. Does it make sense for that character's backstory to take a level in Barbarian, or is this coming out of left field and I just need to take a level of Barbarian so I can rage to get out of these chains? Like, I think that's how I would adjudicate it.
Okay, so I think, you know what, Vivi? I was about to do a fist pump here because I love this, but I did not see what I was thinking. He was already a barbarian. You're saying crap. You're right. All right.
That's the only part where
yes.
You see what I mean? Where you
yes.
Does it make sense in your backstory, your character's backstory, that you take a level in Barbarian?
Yes. So what I was gonna when I read this, I thought, okay, when I let players level up, they must rest. They don't just level up. So I thought this was already a barbarian who had enough hit points, hadn't been able to rest, but because he was trapped, the DM gave him that level up that gave him what he needed. That to me sounded fun. If it was a different class of character and he took a level of barbarian, yes, I would never allow that. Good catch. Good catch.
Yeah. See,
Jay said it sounds cheesy too. All right. Well, we're all on the same page. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like I said, if it makes sense, then yeah, for sure. If that's where you were already kind of at and whatever, then yeah, that's great. Great idea, great thinking. A great example is Argus, Keen, and Rowan. So the characters that Thomas and Robert and I had played together, my character had an incurable disease, essentially, and I was just dying. We would level up, and I knew that Thomas would get that spell when we leveled up, but in game, my character didn't know that when we were going to level up or when he was going to learn it. So essentially she kind of just sacrificed herself because it didn't make sense in the game to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to wait because, OOC, I know that Thomas is going to level up at some point and I can get this.
I love that.
That to me, that logic doesn't make sense in game for character wise. It doesn't make sense.
I love that.
If that's kind of bouncing off of that whole barbarian thing where he's just taking
it was
just to break out of
thank you for catching that. And so with that, you were that was on Roll for Perception, right?
Yes.
Yeah, love that. And so anyway, if you haven't
That
seen
still
those,
hurts.
check them out. Super fun characters, great stuff on Roll for Perception. So you can follow that and check them out. So we had another one where. Go ahead, Rob.
I was gonna say, if you want to watch a dwarf burn the world down,
Catching his wife.
Love it. Love it. I think the rule of cool usually end poorly. For example, there was a time we were playing ourselves and we, I don't even know what that word is, fantasy D&D characters, and the bard used a weapon. During that campaign, the DM let us have our cell phones and walk across worlds. That got out of hand really fast because basically a friend of mine was able to use phones to connect and use spells in ways they weren't intended. Yeah, I think teleport, like that's going, that's your tanks. Yeah, that's your tanks, your missiles. Like no, 1,000
I
times.
mean,
no.
I don't even know what game that is anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Why is there cell phones in there? Yeah. And again, that's the DM. Like, if the DM had allowed it, like.
Yeah, and if you want to do that, yeah, it's okay, right? I mean, if that's your game.
Yeah, if that's your game, that's how you want to play it, then that's totally cool. But I mean, like, again, like, if you want more of a balance to your game and still allow creativity and allow those moments and encourage those moments where somebody's thinking outside of the box and being creative, that's awesome. Giving somebody something that's gonna cause issues later and be super OP. I mean, again, that's up to you now. Now you have to, as the DM, figure out how you're gonna balance out the game again.
All right, and I'm gonna kind of hone in on my primary thesis here in a moment, but I think that's exactly the point that we're making, is that you have to, as a DM, this is never the player's fault. Players can ask, I was joking earlier, my wife every single week tries to do something that her character should not be able to do. It's cool though. And half the time I tell her no. The third of the time I say maybe, but this, and then 20% of the time I say, yeah, you can do that. And it's super fun because you let the players ask. You don't want the players to ever feel just like shut down and crushed in that. That's not, as a DM, what you should do. But if you give them anything they want, thanks, Patrick, that is going a bit far. And I have a real, to me, this is not tangential. This is not ancillary. This is not corollary. This is not something that is on the surface. This, to me, is the core of D&D. I'm going to hit in a second, but let's go back to Matt, if I may, because I like Matt.
If somebody decided they had an ability that let them slow fall, like a monk in 3.5, they decided they wanted to use that to coast down the entire side of a castle as it was crumbling. That's kind of intense, but it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. And so from a cinematic standpoint, it can be a really cool character moment if they're like carrying a special item they just stole and it's their only way of escape. I would say go ahead and allow it, possibly incorporating some skill checks and some
I agree.
challenge, some difficulty to that experience.
And
But
Featherfall was even better, but
say that a person in
Yeah.
theory could continue to coast that down a series of long services in a row. Don't be afraid to bend the rules or loosen up a little bit.
that's a perfect example to me of a good rule of cool.
This also involves in battles and terrain, having to escape on a collapsing ice bridge. It sounds very cinematic and very kind of Michael Bay film aspect. And that can be a really cool moment in a story occasionally. But if every single moment in the game is that, once again, it kind of loses its weight, it loses its cohesiveness. And the quieter moments just seem boring by comparison, and players seem less invested in the story and the tension.
Okay, so he talked about the quieter moments there. I think it's more important even the quieter moments. But I'll stop and let Rob or Vivi respond.
Albert, do you have something to say?
I mean, everything he said there, I'm pretty much fine with. I don't have an issue. Yeah.
Well, this is not the where does Rob disagree with Matt stream. I'm sorry. If I'm setting you up, I didn't mean it that way, Rob.
No, I think
have
that
opinions.
makes sense. And they're all right.
Yeah, exactly.
I think like you said, and I'm sure I know that you've used this too, John, where we do something and you kind of make us roll skill sets to see,
Right.
like, oh, can you do that or whatever? Because I think Lilith, in certain senses, in Wild Shape, have done a lot of like creative things where you're just like, okay, well, you'll have to like roll to see if that's something that's feasible. So I think like he's saying, like, okay, you're skidding down a collapsing, or slow falling down a collapsing castle, but there's going to be debris and all that stuff falling, you know what I mean, other entities and stuff like that. Maybe you have to dodge out of the way so a brick doesn't hit you or whatever. Or if you're sliding, make sure you don't like catch your clothes or catch your leg on something. So that would be skill checks again where you are allowing them, but there is a challenge there. Like he says, we're keeping the continuity of you can't just do whatever you want completely effortlessly and just like fly down and like
Right.
fall like, and then do a little twirl at the end. Like it's gonna look a little messy.
I mean, like the roll to me would give the twirl. I would love that if that twirl happens based on the roll.
Yes.
But yeah, Rob.
Well, I mean, I can give an example from Blue Box Con, the first one. Rory was playing the character, and the party had gotten to the final encounter. There was a ritual being performed. They were basically on the second level of this, not quite a temple area, but there were enemies coming up a flight of stairs alongside the wall, and Rory just said, can I jump over the side and try to land on one of them? Sure. Hey, what the heck? Let's let's be cool about this. We'll make a roll. If you miss, it's gonna hurt. But we'll figure it out. And sure enough, he jumped. For some reason, I want to say that he actually missed the target. I don't remember. Rory, you might remember, but it was a cool moment. It was definitely going over the side and trying to basically get to them before they made their way up the stairs.
Yeah, I love that. Rory, any clarification?
Probably, he said.
So let me.
I know they all survived the encounter. They all survived the encounter. I remember that much. So even if you got injured, it wasn't horrific.
I love that. So Manda had one in the Discord as well. And Manda, I know there's some health things with family there, and you're in our thoughts and prayers. So when she was playing Anala just this last week on our Sea of Dark Sun, Greyhawk Awakening Book 3 stream, Anala slid down the side of a cliff, launched herself off that toward the leader of the group of attackers. These were the Tattered Flag Raiders. One was riding a Crodlu. He was the main guy. And as she leapt off, there was an acrobatics check. I forget she had like 2 or 3 checks. She nat 20. She crushed those rolls. And she was able to kill. She leapt on, drove the dagger into the neck. She paired Nida, which is Ashland's character, rushing forward to drop the healing as she pulled Anala into her arms because there was damage as Anala came down, which I gave her. And so the Vitasan and Vendari, which is Anala and Ashland's character, together created this great moment working together in harmony. None of that was premeditated. It just worked. And to me, that's how Rule of Cool should work. The character has a good idea. It makes sense in context. There's nothing really unbalanced is what's happening. And then precedent. Precedent is such an important thing because if you set precedent, then what about the next time and the next time and the next, then that becomes something that they do over and over and over again. Well, this character well knows if the roles don't work out as those roles did, the Rule of Cool will wind up in the Rule of Drool as your neck is snapped and you're dying in the sand. So this is how it should be, in my mind, run. Yes, now we're all celebrating because it was fantastic. It was fun. The dice supported, the DM supported, and it worked together in context. That is a great Rule of Cool moment. Rob, Vivi?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the main thing is just to figure out. Honestly, I think the hardest part in a case like that, besides figuring out what the die roll should be, but what the DC level should be, is figuring out how to fit it into the mechanics of the combat round.
Right.
Because that's where things can get a little wonky. Is you got
okay. So for me, so Rob, let me ask you. That's a great point because I want to make sure. So to me, I give 15 to 30 feet of movement plus an action and a swift die. So to me, leaping off the side of a cliff, you're going super fast, right? So that's 15 feet of movement, easy to incorporate. Are you concerned, or is there a nuance there you think I should have thought about differently, or?
No. I mean, I'm just talking in general, not that specific thing. But sometimes you have to make sure that, and if it fits completely within the combat round, great. Sometimes you just need to take a peek and make sure that works, because if characters are able to do things that really should take more than one combat round, that's when things can get wonky. You want to make sure that
well said.
If what they want to do, they get to try to attempt it, but it doesn't completely break the game mechanics that everyone else is adhering to.
And sorry, go ahead, Vivi.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that's a perfect example of the rule of cool, because it makes sense for the characters, because the two characters are already so bonded and close in general. That's been their storyline from day one, I'm pretty sure, right?
Right.
So I mean, that storyline there makes sense, that they would be able to be in sync or whatever to be able to pull something like this off, for one. For two, you're still it's still that core and that element of what kind of Matt Mercer was saying, where they did take damage, and it wasn't just they're just going to fall and they're going to be able to miraculously roll together and come out of it completely undamaged. Yes, you're taking a risk by doing something more creative and trying to do something together. It makes sense for their characters, for one. For two, there's still danger involved because they did get damaged from the fall and taking something like that off. And the rules, like you say, and then the rules kind of tell the rest of the story. So I mean, that's a good implementation.
Vivi,
Cool.
I'm just gonna say you run these every week now. I'm just gonna be the background guy. You're better than Rob or I. You're so good at this. No. Doc Shoulder.
Sounds off of what you guys.
No. You're.
Couldn't do it without you guys.
No, lie, all lie. Doc Shoulder. Do you think one edition is easier? No, I don't think. It doesn't matter. I've said this so many times. Any edition, any system. I think some systems are more rules light, like Castles and Crusades from TLG. I love that. But ultimately, I don't care if you're playing 4E, which is super crunchy in combat, or Pathfinder 1E or 2E or 3.5 or 1 or 2 of AD&D.
Did you just say the forbidden word?
I did. I'm sorry.
You just mentioned that formidable.
I
Blasphemy. On stream?
On stream.
I'm going to put a caveat there. The more rules heavy, the more crunchy the rules are, the more the likelihood of law of unintended consequences comes into play.
Okay, all right. So I was about to fight with you, but then when you that made sense. So I'm thinking. Rob and I haven't had a good fight in like 5 months. We've been getting along so well. I feel like it's time for us to fight. I'm teasing Rob, but law of unintended, that makes sense to me. But I don't care how crunchy it is. I'm the DM. I think there's a picture here which is like Thanos. I am I don't like to be that way, but I can bend any rule for what makes sense for the players to have a great time in the story. Does it really matter how crunchy the edition is? Or you're saying tell me more about the unintended consequence.
Well, it's just things. It's easier to break. The more rules there are, the more things can break when you change something. I mean, it's.
Yeah, that's fair. So especially for like newer DMs, right, Rob? So if you're if you're a grognard like us and got the gray hair, like I can quickly move. You can but if you're new to the game, maybe that's harder for you to make that change. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. For sure. I mean,
that's fair.
There's so many things that you have to take into consideration that you've never had to consider before.
Yep, I agree. As a new DM, yeah, it's a lot. It can be challenging because it's already challenging enough. Not really knowing all the rules in general, and then trying to, again, figure out your balance and when you have more experience, you're more confident in your DMing and what the rules are and how you can adjudicate and bend the rules, if it does make sense. I think as a newer DM, sometimes you're kind of just like, I don't know either, So I mean, it can be more difficult as a newer DM.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Okay, I'm not fighting with Rob then. I agree with him. Gosh,
fighting now.
we've got to stop.
Or
No,
you guys
no.
in your own corners.
I'm tired of agreeing with him. It's getting on my nerves how much we're agreeing. All right, so a couple more here. Let's finish with Matt, and we'll wrap up.
But also for people that
It's nice to know that John's come over to my way of
abuse the
thinking.
rules
Yeah, that's it.
and trying to
I have.
No,
break
that's-
I surrender, Uncle.
limitations are, reward those moments of creativity. You know, you can,
Absolutely.
Other bonus experience.
If you don't reward your players for
Awesome
creativity,
example,
you
it might
suck
lead
as a
to
DM.
A better relationship.
I mean,
with the-
mark it
the
down.
non-player
Blue box it.
character or the
If you don't
smart
reward your
players.
players' creativity, you suck as a DM.
But also, you know, dissuade people from reaching too far too often. If someone continues to reach too far in your game and constantly trying to break what is considered a viable character feature list or skill set, then perhaps their failures grow more and more punishing.
Consequence.
There are ways of doing it that aren't too direct. And if you're having a problem enough in the game with this, or you feel that it's really pulling away from the overall narrative or the rest of the player's experiences, just talk with them outside of the game. Now, most RPGs are designed to forge
Last
a heroic
one.
story, you know, showing feats of legend. So let the players try, let them fail,
Right.
and occasionally succeed.
We all said that.
Occasionally. One of my favorite phrases, and you see me use it constantly in Critical Role, is "you can certainly try." And I'll stick and adhere to that because I think part of what's fun about RPGs is it's a place where you can attempt things you would not otherwise be able to do in your own life. And as long as you do it in a creative and respectful way that doesn't, you know, damage or disrespect the time and energy that the dungeon master or game master has put into the narrative, I think it can lead to some really, really awesome, memorable in-character moments. So just through experience, you find that fine line, you find what works, what doesn't, and make sure you discuss that and are clear with it with your players going forward, and you guys are bound to create some really, really epic, memorable adventures. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been
Well said, Matt. Nicely done. Any comments on that?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Hard to argue. So, in conclusion, as we wrap up, I'm going to go to Vivi. Vivi, you know me well. Years now. I'm so sorry. I've subjected you to this like so long. But
Thank you. It's been very-
what if you had to guess, what do you think my main point on the rule of cool and why? So the title of the stream is Disarming the Trap of the Cool Rule, which means obviously I think there is a trap here. I love it. I use it. What do you think my main concept or concern is with the rule of cool?
I think your main concern would probably just be, I don't know, the players. I guess the players just being too over the top of what they're trying to do.
Why would that bother me though?
And not
Hey,
bother you,
no,
but
no.
again, just wanting the balance. Like, I'm not saying it would bother you, but I'm just saying for the sake of the balance of the game, I think that that's kind of
Okay. No, I love this. I love this. Thank you. So let's follow this. Is my concern, in your mind, the balance of the game? Is that why I would be worried about it?
I think so, because I don't think it's necessarily you not wanting us to be creative, because you've always encouraged our creativity. You know, in regards to things like John usually gives us XP at the end, like once whenever he remembers it. but anyway, so
After hours of players begging for it.
yes, aka Rory's being like, "Where's my XP?" I need literally up.
I've gotten a little better.
Okay,
All right.
but the way that John gives us like our XP is not like, here's your XP. You know what I mean? He kind of goes over the things that he thought was really awesome that you did. You know what I mean? And like 90% of the time, it's about the creativity that the players have added to the game. So in that sense, where he's talking about reward your players for creativity, John is really good at that. So I don't think that the rule of cool necessarily, the concern for you is our creativity, because I think you really want us to, you kind of push us to do that and force us in situations where you're like, okay, well, now we're just fireside.
Yeah,
Stop,
right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I think it's mostly, like you say, like the balance of the game and keeping on theme. And
But I don't.
like,
But here's a big secret, Vivi. I don't care about the balance of the game. I don't. You know what I care about?
what?
Breaking immersion.
Don't care about that.
breaking
I don't care about that either.
Anachronisms.
Nope, don't care about
Dinosaurs.
No, don't care. No, I don't care about. So does anyone know? Like in the chat, what do I care about? I really care about one thing.
I feel like this is one of John's obvious puzzles.
Oh yeah, it is one of the.
It should be pretty obvious. I care about
That's
one
something fun there.
fun for the players. All I want is for my players to have fun. Now, to me, fun is not a snow cone that melts on this hot sidewalk that afternoon. Like, it's not immediate gratification. You look at the marshmallow study, right? Take 2 kids, put them in a room, show them you can have a marshmallow, and if you take that marshmallow, you can have that now, or if you can wait 30 seconds, these are ancient, very old, like 60s psych studies, and wait, delayed gratification. Come back in, you'll get 2 chocolate chip cookies if you can wait a bit. To me, fun is not, I can do whatever I want whenever I want. To me, and if my version of fun is wrong, I get that. It's okay. Like, you don't have to watch the stream or be a player. I mean, I want you to, don't get me wrong, but I want you to be a player. But I understand that my version of this is not for everyone. But to me, fun is Irda ascending as an avatar, wings spreading out, getting that Alcott running into the Sandpoint and but all the suffering that he went through, Cade, his ship sailing across the oceans, Greyhawk Awakening, Brim knocking down those trees and erupting in rage. These moments come over time in the right moments, and the struggle is part of what makes it fun. If I think I can do whatever I want whenever I want because I had a clever idea, I don't feel, me as a player, I don't feel like I'm living anything that is real. And I want that game for my players. I want them to feel the resistance, there's a phrase, something interruptus, which is a little bit, it's a different context here, but yeah, okay, all right, got it. All right, so that, right, there's like deferred gratification. Deferred gratification is powerful. That is what a great DM does. Build the narrative, build the story, give the players the struggle. Sometimes they have the satisfaction of that conclusion of the narrative. They have that but many times they are struggling for it, and when they finally achieve it, that is glorious, fun, powerful, satisfying in a way that doesn't come when you just give them the every time you want something. All right, I'm done. I'm
Is this why
spent.
you didn't give Rizia melons?
I gave her melons. I did.
I know, but you didn't. You didn't.
I'm not done with. I'm not done.
For a long time, and you died.
I'm not done.
Also gave Reggie a dagger through the skull, but
You don't get melons, but you get.
But Lilith.
He's trying so hard.
I am. All right. Okay. So, Rob, Vivi, that was my main point. I do believe in the rule of cool. I think your players should be creative, have fun. The rules, to me, that's why I don't care about editions. I can play any edition, the crunchiest, the lightest, have enough knowledge so that there's still a cohesiveness, like Vivi said, the balance. You want some balance. But to me, the balance, the cohesiveness, and whatever it is, all I want is for my players to have fun. And to me, the fun is the end of that campaign, or that 3 years, or that 2 years where there are tears falling and people are rejoicing and celebrating because it was earned over time in a way that is more impactful than the immediate gratification that can happen with a roll.
Agreed.
I'm spent. Rob, fight me, Rob. Come on.
what I'm supposed to
Ding,
say?
ding,
I'm
ding.
anti.
I hate fun. I don't agree
There
with you,
will be
John.
no
I think
fun
it
in
should
this
be
adventure.
Inseparable. Yeah, it should be inseparable and totally not fun.
I'm here to get the players' hopes up and then watch their characters
And then squash them.
I had no idea that was going to happen in book 2. That, like, you found that out just like I did. I had, like, that was... Tom, I'm glad you enjoyed that. Thank you, chat. All of you are... Federum, okay. Pat, How many years must I suffer from
No,
this
it's still
text-based?
too soon. You
All
will
of them,
suffer
John.
forever.
Forever?
Forever. Forever. I will never forgive you.
I'm sorry, Federum.
In my heart.
I'm sorry, Federum. Rod, yeah, exactly. Hey, Cameron, good to see you in the chat. You can't crush your players' hopes and dreams without doing your job. Okay. So, look, ultimately, rule of cool, 2 thumbs up. Use it in your game. It is fun. There should be no rule system which is so draconic and controlling and authoritarian that it ruins your game. But as a DM, your job is not just to make that day fun for your players. Like, I'm looking at you, chat. You want to make the game fun for your players in a way that they remember for a lifetime. Give them stories that they will tell their kids. And that's not because you let them slide down something and do something crazy one time, which is cool if you did that. But the struggle must be there in the game. The fear of death. Death, I've talked about, death must be present in D&D because that fear of death creates triumph over that. When Rizia falls, like wheat into the ground, something will sprout up and grow anew.
Melon tree.
And melon tree. You as a DM want to tell memorable story. I can't tell you what. Maybe you as a DM don't want to do it. Maybe you just want to have pizza and have fun. I as a DM want to tell memorable stories. And if you want to tell memorable stories, Rule of Cool should be part of your ecosystem. The balance that Vivi talked about is not rule balance. It's balance where your players feel like they must overcome a struggle to have that gratification, that celebration, that fist. Thomas, like if you watch Thomas on Sunday, when he told that story and we had the whole Click David unveiling, we're only 23 sessions in now, but that was, and when I said, and that's where we're ending today, he threw back his arms, fist pumped, celebration, like this exultation of emotion. That is your gratification, mine as a DM. That's what I want. Rule of Cool must serve the master, and the master is the players having fun.
Well, you know, you can't just end like that and expect Robert to say something afterwards. Yes,
All right.
Agree.
Fair enough. All right. Rob, fight me. Fight me.
Virtual mic drop because no one should ever drop a real mic.
Don't do that.
Don't do it.
Oh, God.
Your
Don't do it.
Person will kill you.
Your AV people will come out. I had someone do that once. Like, yeah, he did it, and the mic person came out and like got really, really angry. So don't drop real mics. Rob, though, Vivi, final word.
After what you said?
No, yeah, like no, it's like could be like, hey guys, see you next week, or like any final word. Hey, my hat's super cool.
Should we go full circle and come back around to our health issues again?
Yes, yeah, okay, but not the tummy. Like so,
No,
but
my tummy, that's old news.
okay, all right.
No, I think.
What else has started hurting since the stream began?
I'm feeling good since so that it's loosening up. That shoulder's feeling better.
I have a thought.
Go ahead, Rob.
If you've been enjoying the content you've been watching here on Blue Box, but have not yet given us a follow,
No.
or you have followed, but you have not yet found it in your heart to subscribe.
No.
If you have,
Where is that heart 3 sizes too small?
or you have a subscription, but you've let it lapse.
Sacre bleu!
Or worst of all, you have not yet joined us in our wonderful Discord.
We have so much fun in the
all
chat.
Chatters chat. We here at Blue Box have one question for you.
What are you doing? Let's go.
Oh, give us a sub. Join us in the Discord. And I think
See you next week.
And thank you to all of our Mad Chatters. Thank you to Matt, who let us gank his style today. Thank you to Monty Hall. Rest in peace, my friend. much about that I didn't get to cover tonight, but it's super fun. And to all of our Blue Box fans, all of our chatters, you guys rock. We're going to raid Jay. And this is the heart I perfected only at Vivi's behest.
Yay.
I have learned to do this because of my good friend Vivi. And I mean,
I don't know. This new one hurts my fingers. People do this and it hurts my fingers so bad.
Okay, wait. So wait, what?
Too many years of playing goalkeeper.
All right, raiding Jay now. Good night, all. We'll see you Sunday.